it's Bill Fields, and today I'd like to talk to you about how to prepare your buyers to buy. Let me ask you a question. Are you a serious real estate professional? Are you serious about helping people? Are you committed to providing knock your socks off service to your buyers? Well, then do me a favor. Answer this question. Buyers want to what? Buyers want to look. Buyers want to shop. No, buyers want to buy. So I'm going to share some tips with you today that can actually help you double the number of buyers that you actually help. Now, folks, I'm going to ask you, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a real estate tour guide or a real estate sales professional? Do you get paid for showing houses, or do you get paid for selling houses? See, there seems to be some confusion about what our job really is. See, I don't think our job is to put people in the car and drive them around until they find the perfect home, because I don't believe the perfect home exists. I believe it's my job to help people satisfy the need they have to buy a new home. Now, I hear all the time from agents, oh, this buyer's wasting my time. I spent so much time doing this with this buyer. I did this. Folks, people can't waste your time unless you let them. If buyers are wasting your time, it has more to do with our methodology than it does their desire to waste our time. Now let's come back to what I asked you in the beginning. Are you a tour guide or are you a professional salesperson? See, folks, I'm a salesperson and I'm proud of it. And I believe that professional selling is really two things: determining somebody's needs and then putting a plan into place in order to satisfy that need. So your success or failure with a potential buyer is really determined before you even start showing them homes. It starts at the very beginning. So I'm going to share with you some simple steps for converting all of your potential prospects into happy home buyers. Because at the end of the day, that is what you want, isn't it? Now, let's start with the most important rule of all. The first rule, and I believe the most important non-negotiable rule of preparing my buyers to buy, is to get all prospects into the office for a buyer consultation. Okay, what is a buyer consultation? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an opportunity for me to sit down and really determine what the needs of this prospect are, and then offer a plan of action in order to help them satisfy those needs. I'm shocked at the number of agents that run around out there trying to help buyers before they've ever sat down with them and had an actual buyer consultation. So the first and most important thing you must do to convert a prospect into a happy homeowner is to get them into the office to sit down and have a simple but very thorough buyer consultation. Now, as part of that buyer consultation, you want to make sure you have a buyer presentation that you use to establish a safe buying environment. What is a safe buying environment? Exactly what it sounds like. It's an environment that you create that makes your buyers feel safe to go forward and buy. So just like you have a listing presentation, you need a buyer presentation. And we sit down with them and we discuss lots of things. The first thing we're going to discuss with them is the difference between needs and wants. I have to help them satisfy their needs, and I want to offer them as many wants as they can possibly get. But folks, want and need are not the same thing, and that's part of the problem. A lot of agents don't take time to explain the difference. Need are those things that a buyer absolutely, positively must have in a property, and want are the things that they would like to have in addition to the things they need. One of the reasons a lot of agents are having difficulty converting their buyer prospects is because they're too busy trying to find the buyers what they want instead of focusing on what it is the buyers need. So we start out by explaining the difference between wants and needs. We make two lists. We make a list of all the things they need, and we make a list of all the things they want. Then the next thing that we do, we explain to them that there is no perfect home. Whenever I hear an agent say to a buyer, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to find you the perfect home," I know they're going to be in trouble, because there is no perfect home, is there? The perfect home doesn't exist. Buying a new home is about compromising. It's about getting all of the things you need and as many things as you want in a property you can afford in an area you want to live. Well, buyers don't always know that. They think they're supposed to just keep looking and looking and looking and looking until they find a perfect home. There is no perfect home. The next thing you want to do as part of your buyer consultation is determine what type of financing your buyers are planning to use. I'm always surprised by the agents that run out and show a home to a property who calls in, maybe on a floor call, calls in on a sign, or even sends them an email, and the agents rush out there to show them a property. They don't even know if the buyers can afford it. They don't even know if it's in the right price range. Folks, you must make sure that the buyer's financing is in place. Not only do they need to be pre-qualified in today's market, they need to be pre-approved, don't they? And it's not just because it's to help us, it's to help them. A lot of buyers are getting into multiple bidding situations when they're trying to buy. Well, if they are a pre-approved buyer, it makes them a much better buyer, doesn't it? And isn't our job, again, to help our buyers buy? So we're going to discuss wants and needs. We're going to explain there is no perfect home. And we're going to ask them, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what type of financing are you planning to use for your new home? Oh, you don't know? Well, why don't I put you together with my loan specialist? He can show you the many different types of financing plans that are available, including many that will save you money. See, folks, that's part of my job and part of what I do during the buyer consultation stage. Then I want to determine what type of buyer they are. See, part of our struggle is we're showing properties to a buyer without really understanding what type of buyer they are. What does that mean? Well, there are three types of buyers in the marketplace. There's the I'll pay anything buyer. That's the buyer that'll pay any price for a property that has all of the things they need and want in an area where they want to live. And there's not many of those buyers going around. There's the fair market buyer. That's the buyer that's willing to pay a fair price for a fair property. They understand the market, they're going to comparison shop, and they will pay a fair price for a fair property. And then there's the bargain hunters, right? Those are the people that are looking to take advantage of somebody else's misfortune in order for them to get a really good deal, a bargain, a good value. And it's nothing a matter with being that type of buyer. I just need to know what type of buyer they are so I can determine what is the right type of properties to show them. There's nothing worse than showing people that I think is a fair market buyer properties that they can in fact buy at fair market, and they're really bargain hunters, and I waste their time and I waste mine too. Now, one of the things I don't understand is how few agents get a buyer agreement, which is basically an authorization from the buyer that allows you to go to work for them. So many agents are so reluctant to get a buyer agreement with their buyers. I don't understand why. We wouldn't take a listing without getting the seller to sign it. Why would we work with a buyer without getting a buyer to authorize a buyer agreement? Ladies and gentlemen, you have to get people comfortable with utilizing your services and having you represent them in the home buying process. You need them to commit to working with you and only you. You need that agreement of loyalty. You need something in writing that authorizes you to go to work on their behalf. Please get comfortable using these buyer agreements. They exist for a purpose. They protect the buyer, and they protect you, and they make the process better for everybody. Now, the next thing we do with all buyers as part of our buyer consultation is we review the paperwork. Why do we wait until we find a property to then pull out the contract and scare everybody? Why don't we review the paperwork with them? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when we find your new home today, this is the paperwork we're going to use in order to help you own it. Let's go over it together so you're comfortable and answer any questions you might have now before we find your new home. See, that's a much more effective way, isn't it? It gets them comfortable with the paperwork so that when we find the new property, all we have to do is fill in the address, get their approval, and we're ready to go. So as part of your buyer consultation, please make sure you review all the paperwork. Now, once we've done all that, we're prepared to start finding a property for them to own. And folks, you need to select with them, not for them. When we select for them, when we do the MLS searches and we provide them things and we take them out and we show them things we picked, they think that there's more things out there that they haven't seen because you haven't shown them. You need to choose with them. You need to sit them down at the computer with you and have them go through the selection process so that they see there's nothing else. The 5 properties we're going to show them are the 5 best properties in the market for them. Again, it's to help your buyers. It's not to hurt them, it's to help them. So you've got to select with them, not for them. Now, one of the mistakes that agents seem to make when they're creating this, right buyer's environment, the safe buying environment, I call it, to get your buyers prepared to buy, is they don't create the expectation for the buyer they own. They talk about, well, let me go show you some houses. I found some properties for us to go look at. Folks, you've got to create the expectation for the buyer to own. Right? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when you come in today, don't forget to bring your checkbook, because we're expecting them to buy today. When we find your new home today, is there anything that's going to stand in the way of you owning it? See, we don't talk to them in terms of, let's go look at things. Let's go out this weekend and look. Let me show you something. No, let's go find your new home today. One of these 5 properties we got is going to be your new home. I hope you're excited. Folks, create the expectation for the buyer to own, not the expectation for the agent to keep showing. You've got to remove any unknown or potential obstacles. One of the other things that we do as part of our buyer consultation is we ask the buyer, is there anything that could keep you from owning your new home when we find it today? Because sometimes they have somebody else that needs to look at it. Maybe they don't have their financing in order. They have to get the money from something else or somebody else, or something might be standing in their way. We need to know what it is, don't we? So that we can help them. So let's remove any unknown or potential obstacles. Now, once we've done all those things, now we're ready to help the buyers go find their new home. So in our next training tip, we'll cover the exact steps from getting your buyer out of the office and into their new home. So this is Bill Field saying thanks for joining me for this video training tip. I look forward to being with you again real soon.